Okay, so 1.3, distance and midpoints. Distance and midpoint are two things that the MCAs love to throw at you. It loves to pop up on the ACT as well. And what you got to do is kind of think about some algebraic concepts mixed in with some geometry concepts. So you're looking at a coordinate plane. So that means a graph, so lines and things like that. So start off with the number line. Start off really simple. So I'll figure out how far it is from A to C, figure out how far it is from B to D, figure out how far it is from A to D. So A to C is right here. So from -5 to 0. That's 5 units long. Okay, so that's 5 units. From B to D is right here. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 units long. So that's going to be 4 units long. AD from here all the way to here is going to be from -5 up to 2. So that's going to be 7 units long. Okay, I'm really hoping this is easy for you. Because when you start looking at things, here's kind of what you run into. When you're trying to figure out the midpoint, midpoint is exactly halfway in between. That's all midpoint means. Midpoint means what is halfway between two other points. So between F and H, what is halfway? Well, F to H is 8 units long. So I need to go half that, so 4 units. So 4 units, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So G is going to be the midpoint of FH. Okay, so G, which is at the location of 1, is going to be the midpoint of FH. So what's the midpoint between G and H? So what's the midpoint there? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to go 2 points. There's the midpoint. That's going to be a location 3. So midpoint means literally halfway in between. So figure out what B is, given that A is the midpoint of BT. So for that segment, I can say those two things are congruent. That means A is a midpoint. So by definition, this is a midpoint A. That means these two segments are congruent to each other. That means the two measures are equal to each other. So subtract 3, subtract 3. It's good old algebra. It never goes away. So B is going to be 4. So figure out the measure of PQ if Q is in the midpoint of PR. So hold on a second. So PQ and QR are equal to each other. Boom, boom. Have the same measure. They are equal to each other. The segments are congruent. That means that's equal to that. So now it just becomes an algebra problem. But it's just a concept of realizing that these two things are equal to each other. So Y is 4, but they want the measurement of PQ. So they need 14 plus 5 times 4. So that's 14 plus 20. So that's 34. So that's how long that is. And 9y minus 2 should be the same thing, and it is. So what are the coordinates of the following points? So take a look at G, F, and H. So G is going to be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down 1. So G is going to be at -7, -1. F, real simple, 1, -1. H, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be at 6, 5. So the midpoint formula on the coordinate plane looks a little bit like this. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to figure out the midpoint from here to here is easy. The midpoint from here to here is a little tougher. The midpoint from there to there is a little tougher too. So the way that you do that is you look at your x points and the y points. And all you do is say average the x points, add x1 and x2, divide by 2. Add the y points and divide by 2. So add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. So take a look. What's the midpoint of FH? So if I'm looking at what's the midpoint of FH, so here's F, here's H. Here's X1, here's X2, here's Y1, here's Y2. So X1 plus X2 divided by 2. Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2. Remember, I keep that negative with it. So this becomes 7 over 2, and this becomes 4 over 2. So this becomes 3.5 and 2. That is my midpoint. That is halfway between F and H. So if I look at the points, halfway between F and H. So from F to H, halfway I say it's 1, 2, 3.5 up 2. That's where I say my midpoint is. It backs it up on the graph. It looks pretty good. That's how I know what my midpoint is. All right, and it's an actual point. It's an actual point. I see kids that do this and they get this right answer, and then they think they got to add those two or multiply them or something. Don't do that. That's your answer. It's a midpoint. It's an actual point. So this last one, what is the midpoint of GF? Well, let's look at G and look at F. Here's G, here's F. That's side F. So let's kind of figure out that same idea. So negative 7 plus 1 divided by 2. Negative 1 plus a negative 1 divided by 2. All right, so like this becomes x1, this becomes x2, this becomes y1, this becomes y2. So negative 7 plus 1 is going to be negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 1 plus negative 1 is negative 2 divided by 2 is going to be negative 1. So you got negative 3, negative 1. So what is halfway between G and F? So 1, 2, 3, negative 1. There we go. Because it's 4 units that way, 4 units that way. That's a midpoint. Distance. Distance is a little bit trickier, especially for given 2 points. Distance formula looks like this. The square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So what is the distance from point F to point H? Well, now we got to go back to the points where we're at. So F, remember, was at 1, negative 1. H, remember, was at 6, 5. G was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Was at negative 7, negative 1. So remember, that's where our points are. So what is the distance from point F to point H? So how far is it from here to here? Well, it's not a straight line, so I can't just count blocks. That doesn't work because I'm going diagonally. I'm not going left, right, or up, down. I've got to go across this here. Okay, so if you're clever, maybe you can figure out that, hey, that's a triangle. Maybe I can use a little Pythagorean theorem and figure it out that way. What this does is uses that idea and kind of puts it into one thing. So from F to H, so that means like x1 is going to be 1, y1 is going to be negative 1, x2 will be 6, y2 will be 5. So now here's where I got to play a little fill in the blank. So my answer is going to be 6 minus 1 squared plus 5 minus negative 1 squared, the square root of all that. So this is going to be 5 squared plus 6 squared So that's going to be 25 plus 36. When I put that together, that's going to be 61 square root. All right, and if I ask for the simplified answer, that's what it is. So it'd just be square root of 61. Don't give me a big, long, ugly decimal because that's not mathematical. That's messy, and I don't like that. But that's how you do it. X2 minus X1, Y2 minus Y1. So now what's the distance from point G to point F? Well, this one is a straight line, so you could cheat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and just count that it's 8 units. Well, let's check and make sure using the formula here. So from point G to point F. So for point G, so X1 is going to be negative 7. Y1 will be negative 1. X2 will be 1. Y2 is going to be negative 1. So follow the rules here. So 1 minus a negative 7 squared plus negative 1 minus negative 1 squared. So this is going to be 8 squared plus, this is actually going to be 0 squared, square root. So that's going to be the square root of 64, which is 8, which matches up with what we got here. That's all I got. You'll get more practice with this, especially get good with the distance formula because there's a lot to that.